Well, here we are taking another look at the form, and in specific, the external movements of the arms. Actually the assignments that I gave you, the sort of homework, is pretty straightforward. It's easy to describe. Just do with your arms whatever they normally do when you're doing the form, except do it without moving the waist, without moving the legs in any way. Just do it from a standing position. And of course, I'm sure you have discovered by this time that this is a very confusing and puzzling and kind of depressing task, because it lets you know that you really didn't know what you were doing before. Because you don't know what you're doing unless you can do it isolated from other factors. So you might say that the rest of this lecture, these talks, are sort of my tips on how to do that. They're just mechanisms through which I sort of facilitate that process. Because, as I say, the goal is quite simple to describe. Just do with the arms what they normally do, except do it without use of the legs. So here are some tips. We were looking at, I believe, Grasp the Sparrow's Tail and its initial change. And I'm sure I pointed out that from our initial movement, which it originally looked kind of like this, and then depending on how far out you step, this movement finally reduces to right here, and it might even end up being back here. But in any case, what happens is, as you do it, it leads to a position in which you have this kind of shape in front of your body, which is sometimes called carrying the ball or holding the ball or something like this. So at a certain point, you have this, when the waist is to the corner. So you say, how did these go over here? But instead, they just did this, and as they did this, you turn the waist. So here, now the next thing that happens is this, and in this, the waist doesn't move at all. You shift from here to the 50-50 position, and the waist doesn't turn. So that one's pretty easy. So we can go that far. Let's see. Ward off left, then, is holding the ball like this, then separating like this. So as we discussed, though, it's at that point that something a little more complex happens. The waist takes a full quarter turn, and as the waist takes a quarter turn, the arms change so that they end up like this and not like this. So in just showing you just now, this is again the way we approach it. We say, okay, first we do the movement the way we normally do it. And then we say, okay, now let's do that same waist movement, but without the arms. Then we get to here, and we say, well, what did my arms at? Well, we can remember where they went, so just put them there. Then you see the process reduces itself to doing this at the same time that you're doing this. And when that happens, you get this. So this is the process you have to go through with all the moves. In the next change, you have again this sort of holding ball thing, but now when you administer the ward off, the strike, again the waist isn't turning, but now the left arm, instead of pulling out like this, sinks down like this. So you have something that kind of looks like you're holding the ball and you just sort of turn it up this way. So if we go this direction, we would have this angle. Okay. Now, from here, we go to the move that really starts to become complex, which is rollback. Now, Parmigian consists of four postures, four movements. There's Pang. This is the defensive ward off. Lu, which is rollback. Ji, which is press. And An, which is push. Now, again, say, okay, I know how to do that. Now, what would happen if I didn't change my arms at all? Let's say first we have Pang, and now we're going to do this. Okay, so that's pretty simple. That's all that is. That's the movements of the arms there. So let's see if we got that right. So from here, this becomes Peng, this becomes Yang. And now if we turn like this, that's pretty much what we want. Okay. Now rollback is the complex one. And this involves a turn of the waist that is pretty radical. Ideally, you should be able to turn it 90 degrees. Actually, it's more than 90 degrees, because here you turn the waist to more than straight ahead. And you want to keep that angle. So here you technically face in the corner, and you turn completely to the wall here, if you can. While you're doing this, the arms make this compensating movement. So again, break it down. Say, okay, let's start here, and now let's see what would happen if I don't change anything. Wow, this is pretty radical. So then go back to the move itself and say, oh, okay, suppose I just do it the way I normally do. How did it end up? Here and here. Okay, remember that. And then say, okay, I'm going to go to here. What happened? Somehow this became here and this became here. So those are the two internal or external and internal changes you're making while the waist is turning. So if you want to just do this without moving the waist, now you get something that looks like, well, we start here. We'll say here's our ward off. And this. And then, of course, this is easy to remember because the waist doesn't turn. So nothing changes. So again, how do we do this? We concentrate on the original move. And we say, okay, now I'll put my mind as much as possible on the movements of the arms. And now I'll see if I can make that movement without turning the waist. So here it is. You can even go back and forth and then say, okay, that's what's really happening. This is sort of shooting off to the side here. And if you do it at the same time that you turn, then you get this. So this is the process you have to go through. Now, another convenient change you can make to make it easier is take it even one arm at a time. Say, okay, here's the original movement. Now, how do we do that movement just with the right arm? So do that a couple of times going back and forth. Because it's pretty easy to just kind of forget what's happening here and say, okay, now I can just concentrate on this movement of this arm. And then say, okay, there it is. You do that. Then concentrate on the movement of the other arm. It's just this. So I have this and this. So then we'll say, okay, then go back to your sort of standard position here and say, all right, I'm here. Now, how did that feel? From this, it went out like this, and this changed to this. So, try to make that smooth now. Now, you want to follow that. The waist turns from the wall back to the corner. And as it does, the arms change. Now, the actual internal changing of the arms is from Peng and An to what I call neutral. In other words, they both change back to the most completely relaxed position possible. So, and then, again, neutral, and then touch, and then as they extend, which is pretty easy to figure out, you just turn the waist at the same time. As they extend, they change to Peng and An again. So, you get this. Now let's just follow, again, just the right arm. Now you notice when you isolate it from the other arm, it starts to look kind of far out. What's the person doing? And when you isolate it from the legs, it really starts to look funny, because now you're going. So it has this, like, why is he waving his arm around this way? It loses all of its coherence. But then when you put it back in, and you really feel what the arms are doing here as the waist turns, the whole move starts to connect together in a much more powerful way. And this is the actual function of this. In other words, not to make you more confused, or, in other words, it's not to make things more complex. It's actually to make things simpler. Again, we just keep eliminating variables like the legs, the other arm. We probably have almost nothing left. And then put the thing back together again and realize that each part of it is now much more conscious, and we can really follow it. And it's the following of all those changes and parts which really constitutes your consciousness. When your consciousness becomes complete with the whole body and integrates all of these factors. And when I say all of these factors, there are more than these. But this is an example of how you can't possibly do them all at the same time. You have to isolate things down to one factor or another, and then even isolate them further to one half of the body or other, and then isolate them even further to one side of the body or the other. And so this is the process. And we'll try to go into it at some time in the future.